Patrick, thank you for coming to camp. My name's Thad Johnson with ABC, and we're going to look at your video here today and talk about a couple different things. Um, the first thing that we're going to go into and watching your video here, we're going to talk about the initial balance position and really in looking at what you do, you definitely get into a solid balance position. Do a lot of the work over the rubber. I really like when I talk to my guys, I'd like to see them. When you talk about being in a good position, having the majority of their body, over the rubber, over their foot. You're slightly left of center or right of center, being left-handed. However, you do definitely look to be in a solid position. One thing to consider is when you lift your leg, okay, a lot of people call it a leg kick. I like to say a leg lift. And what this will do, if you can think about it being a lift, you're not going to kick your foot. And it appears here, focus on your foot here. It appears that you may be just kicking it up, which will cause a lack of balance. You want to try to create simple movements. So go ahead and focus on just lifting your leg as opposed to kicking your leg to that balance point. In one drill that you can just work on is just a simple lift balance drill where you just do a series of leg lifts. You can do it with your eyes closed. It tends to help guys, really start to feel their body work. And again, it's a controlled lift. And the speed will vary. You can play around with your speed of your lift. But moving on to your direction, the one thing, when you start to move towards home plate, okay, obviously there's a catcher sitting in front of you, home plate's in front of you. Everything wants to stay in line. And the first thing I notice is your leg and your front foot, which would be your right leg. This line right here, your right leg is going to want to land fairly close to this line, ideally on top of it with a toe pointed towards home plate, towards your catcher. And as you can see, your direction is more in a left to right area. As you move forward, you're really opening up early. Now, what this is going to cause you to do is have left to right action, in your delivery as opposed to back to forward. And pitching, you need to think pitching is all about lines to home plate, being as efficient as possible with your delivery, so everything is going in one direction. The less movement you have left to right, okay, and what your body's doing, it just makes it a lot easier on your brain to work and tell your body parts what to do, which is obviously with your hand. So your hand right now wants to move forward, but your body wants to move, to the right. So you're kind of fighting yourself. And as you can see when you land, your foot is in a good placement, or is in a good position. However, your foot's in a good position, your toes pointed forward, but you can see, you got a big time distance issue here, or a big time issue just with how much further your foot is to the right than it needs to be a lot more to the left. So a drill that you could use in doing dry work day in and day out. A lot of pitching is very boring in regards to working at the craft, but doing dry work where you work on your delivery and you can take that balance drill and then you take it to the next step of stepping and what I call a T line. And really what you got here, and what I'll do is I'll draw a T line. So in a practice setting, you can get on dirt and you've got your mound, okay, or your tee, the top of the tee, and then you've got your direction line, which would be where your toe or middle of your foot would be and where you want to land. Okay, so you draw these lines in the dirt, and basically you just go through and you work on stepping on that line. Go through your delivery, the dirt. You're going to make marks in the ground, and it's going to be an immediate feedback where you can just work your whole delivery through the tee line. So you finish, and you go ahead and you look down at your feet and you go, hey, I need to move it over to the left 2-3 inches. Now this is definitely something that you're not going to be able to fix overnight. Um, but it just takes constant work. I mean, we'll do this at the college level. We'll do our guys work on this constantly every day. 10-15 minutes of dry work working on different parts of the delivery, and striding open or striding across their body is one of the major issues that I think a lot of pitchers have, and they just need to constantly work on stepping in the right spot. Again, it makes it makes it a lot easier on your brain to tell your body what to do when you have small, simple movements. Okay, you get out to a release right here, and one thing to note: you're in a great position. Your head is level. Your head is level. I really look for guys that aren't leaning over to their glove side. You haven't lost your glove is nice and tucked to the body, which is another thing we look for with our pitchers to see if they've maintained good posture at release. When a lot of guys talk about being balanced at the top of the delivery at the balance point, and there's also a balance issue that we look for, at release of the baseball. And again, you do a great job here, Patrick, of maintaining that posture through the delivery and really rotating through and around that land leg. Get rid of some of these circles, and again, you talk about kind of something that you can rotate around, and you look once you get out to that release point, you stay nice and stable. Your head and your foot's on line in your body, and I know it's a little difficult here with the camera moving, but it's definitely something that you look for with guys on their finish, just to make sure that they're nice and upright on their finish. Your follow through is good. You have a great extension with your throwing hand, and your finish is nice and long. You get all the way back behind you're doing a slap. You're almost slapping your backside or your right pocket on your finish, which is a thing that I tell our guys to do is on your release of the baseball, get through the baseball, create some hand speed through the baseball, and get long, get through the ball, and really tell them to slap. And as you can see, if your hand were to travel another foot, you'd be slapping yourself in the back pocket, which is excellent. This is from an injury standpoint, this is something we look for. Guys that recoil their arm and stop their arm right after release will tend to have shoulder elbow problems. So this is something that you do very, very well. I want to back this up and talk to you a little bit more about when you release your hands. Okay, this is going to be a little bit harder for you to work on, a little bit harder to change, just because when guys break their hands, what they do in the backside of their delivery, which the backside of their delivery is anywhere, anywhere that happens back in this area. This is where some you kind of develop your arm circle over time, and the older you get, the harder it is to change. But if you look at your ball right here, pitchers need to create whip with their hand, okay, and with their wrist, and you are already in a throwing position, which is going to force you to shot put the baseball. And creating arm speed, hand speed in this position right here is very, very difficult to do. I'd like to see, the hand I'd like to see the hand be somewhere down in this area right here, okay, creating kind of a loose wet newspaper like noodle like, you know, arm circle. And the ball really should be, you know, pointed down, okay. If you can point the baseball down in this area, you'll be able to pick it up, and as you pick it up, your arm will, you know, it'll bend, it'll turn, the wrist will become looser, and you'll be able to really whip the ball through. And if you watch, you never really have a whip action. That ball never moves. It just stays, and you rotate your front side, and you'd really like to see that arm lay down. And again, this is just caused because it's a stiff, you know, you have a stiff kind of takeaway out of your glove. But all in all, Patrick, you know, you do a pretty good job with your delivery. You know, you look like you know, you're in a good balance positions. You have a great feel for, you know, for pitching. You know, and ultimately at the point of release, when you release the baseball, you are in a very sound position, and I feel like, you know, just because you do that well, you're going to have a lot of success in this game. Um, and to just reiterate some of the points we talked about here today. On lift, you wanna lift your leg. You don't want to kick it. Okay. When you break your hands, I'd like you to just be a little bit longer with your throwing hand, not so stiff and quick. Just let it kind of dangle behind you and then pick it up fast. Okay. You know, your glove is in a great position. When you stride out, again, you want to stride out in line. You can practice the T-line drill and continue on with your follow-through, which is what you do very, very well. You're in a great sound position and finish in the delivery. So balance, direction are really your two issues that you need to work on. I want to thank you for coming to camp, and hope to see you out there again sometime.